You send in 41,000 emails, 350 voice messages, 744 tweets, 48 Facebook messages, and
Today, 7th of July, this will be a video for the July edition, and the problem still continues, the problem still persists. There's been no difference in quality of life, it's just getting worse and worse. This is, as I've said many a time, in no relation to any mental illness, disabilities, drug use, or any kind of substance misuse. This is solely being institutionalized and an institutional self being incorrectly used. The process has snagged my ability to breathe, which is getting worse and worse over the last 6 months. This is much stress, not mental illness. And I've also quit smoking for over a year. So it would be very out of character for this issue to now start when I've stopped smoking. And I've never had this problem before. The amount of pressure on my jaw is completely wired shut. The problem's getting worse and worse in an institutional self. Obviously, my sex drives and sex prowess has been completely stripped out. Now I've got very limited, if any, recognition of sexual tension, sexual lust, sexual prowess, any kind of intimate lust, any kind of sex drives. The problem's just getting worse and worse. They're stripping out parts of my life that you cannot live without. They've replicated a situation whereby the system's entitled to go into whatever aspect, take character they want and strip it out. The amount of pressure on my internal organs is still vast. It's a crime against humanity, and I'm still in a controlled state. This is still going on. As I've said time and time again, if South Yorkshire Police didn't act last February, then you cannot really conform to any kind of reality or society whatsoever. This is high-risk criminality to the highest extent. It's the worst crimes I've ever seen. To be used in a controlled state, to be humiliated and degraded, I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. So there needs to be some regulations, laws and restrictions on what these officers are doing with institutionalisation or with regards to institutionalisation. And if they get caught committing crime where they're using people in a controlled state and creating their own crime and creating their own behaviours, creating their own human punch bags in an institutional self, there needs to be consequences for those individuals that feel as though they're entitled to commit crimes against humanity, which it is. There's no doubts in my mind whatsoever that these officers are committing crime in an institutional self. I know that for a fact. The crimes are being subject to in a controlled state are some of the most horrific, heinous, brutal crimes I've ever seen, and they don't take any accountability or any recognition for the crimes that they're actually committing. For that reason, they feel as though drug use, mental illness, criminality, and external factors give them full immunity to commit any crime they want. They feel as though they're beyond the law, beyond God's itself, not beyond law. They feel as though they're beyond God's itself. They're beyond the universe and anything that made it. They're committing crimes in a controlled state and literally creating people's lives in a controlled state, committing crime against them. Whether it's sex crime, physical assault, crippling, degrading, just full involvement to every aspect of their life with full entitlement to give them a controlled life, committing crime against them. There needs to be some regulation on how much jurisdiction a mental health label or a criminality label gives these officers or gives the officers entitlement to. Because as it stands now, or as it is, they feel they're just creating their own crime. They're creating their own crime and their own behaviours to use in the system that's usually, or the majority of the time, not in conjunction with actual reality. So they're creating their own behaviours, claiming it's mental illness in the system, when actually in reality, the individual is in a controlled state and the officers are creating that behaviour whilst in a controlled state and getting sadistic power or prowess. They're just making a mockery of the system. They're making a mockery of the public, making a mockery of people's lives. Just think it's some kind of joke where they're entitled to people's lives to humiliate them. So that's why the system's in a state of disarray and turmoil, because officers are using people in this controlled state and they're putting behaviours through the system or crimes through courtrooms that they've created themselves, that the system's creating in a controlled state. Critical condition, problem still continues, July the 7th.